What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Raider World. So yeah, in this video we have the cam cover from Pass-Thru Arm Biker. This came recommended by a buddy of mine. Never really heard of Pass-Thru Arm Biker, but they have a lot of cool products on their website, so I'll probably be checking out some more stuff. I'll put all their info in the description below, that way you guys can check them out and see what they offer. Now, anytime you take off your cam cover or you're changing it out, you always want to replace that gasket. Even if you just did a cam job and you have a new gasket on there, whenever you tighten down on that gasket, it creates a seal. And whenever you break that seal, that gasket's pretty much done. I don't believe this one comes with one. I can't see if there's one behind there. We'll see once I open this up, but you can always pick one up at your local Harley Davidson. They're very inexpensive and it's gonna save you a lot of time and grief. Now, I'm not going to empty out the engine oil. I just did an oil change, but any oil that I lose taking off that cam cover, you're not gonna lose a lot. You shouldn't lose a lot. I'll go ahead and replace that oil. The hardest part about this install is just taking off your exhaust. Now, luckily, I'm in the middle of changing out my exhaust, so I already have that off. If you guys wanna see videos on changing out exhaust, I have plenty of videos on the YouTube channel going over changing out exhaust, switching them up, so you guys can check those out. Other than that, guys, this is gonna be a very simple install, so let's go. So what I'll do first is get all these screws out. That way I can add some blue Loctite. I'll get them down nice and snug. There's no torque value for these, but I'll just get them down nice and snug with some blue Loctite and it should be fine. So to get these screws out, I'm using a 3mm hex bit. So here you have your clear window. It does include a gasket on the inside. You have a notch right here on the bottom. Then you have a notch on your window. You would just line that notch up with the bottom of that. Just line that up and drop that in. Then I'll just take the ring. You want these cutouts facing out. You have a flat side over here, and then I'll just line these holes up. And then I'll add some blue Loctite to all the screws. I'll get all these screws started and I'll just get them down nice and snug. Now, when I tighten these down, I'll tighten them down in a star pattern. Now, when you take your cam cover off, you just wanna make sure you have a catch pan or something to catch that oil when you take it off. Also, what I'll do is put some PigMat over these wires. That way, any oil that comes out doesn't drip all over the wires. Now, I do have these Serial 3D bolt caps. I'll go ahead and take these off. So for your cam cover, you have a total of 9 screws. So I'll go ahead and get these out, and I'm using a 3/16 hex bit. So like I said, you want to replace this gasket because once you tighten this down, it affects the seal. So you don't want to reuse the same gasket because it's already been sealed and it's just not going to work properly. So they're very inexpensive, so I'll just go ahead and change that out. Also, with these screws, I'll make sure to clean them off. If you have any oil on your screws, you can take some brake cleaner, clean all that off. You don't want to add any Threadlocker on top of oil. It's just not going to have a good bond. Now, if you are thread chasing your holes, which I recommend you do, you want to make sure you cover this up. You don't want any of that old Loctite or Threadlocker all over your chain. You don't want that getting inside of your cam right here. So you want to cover that up. So I'll go ahead and clean this mating surface off, get any of that oil off there. Also, if you get any oil inside the thread holes, I'll just try to get that out as best as you can. You don't want any of that Loctite mixing up with the oil. And while you have this off, you can go ahead and inspect your cam, check your chain, check your tensioner, just make sure everything's intact. There's no excessive wear or tear. Now, before you install your new gasket, just make sure there's no cracks or breaks. One more time before you get this installed, check that window, make sure it's nice and clean. So I'll get this gasket lined up with the cam cover and I'll start with the top screw just to make sure I keep that lined up. And then I'll get this one started. Now, there is a tighten sequence for this and I'll go over that once I get these screws in. Now, there is a tighten sequence to these. That way you can get that gasket to properly seal. I'll post that up right here. Now, the torque value for these screws is 90 to 120 inch-pounds. And same thing, you want to torque these down in the same sequence. All right, so there you have it. Like I said, this is a very simple install. The hardest part is getting your exhaust off. Luckily, I was in the middle of already changing out my exhaust. So very cool product from Bullitt Worx on Instagram. I believe they're Bullitt Worx. I'll put all their information down in the description below. It's really cool having a window on here. You can actually see your cam in there, especially have a fueling cam or SNS cam, whatever cam you have. Just being able to look in there and see that cam, all that hard work you put in into putting that cam in there, and you know, just to cover it up with a regular cover and not being able to see it. Also, it gives you the opportunity to see if it's running like it should, or if, you know, anything's getting damaged. I have a few other products from them that I'll be installing on the bike. I'll show you guys that later in other videos. But other than that, guys, I'll see you on the next one.